What is going on, guys? Rewinds here, and in this video I'm going to be bringing you guys the full spoilers for Boruto 2 Blue Vortex Manga chapter number 26. And I do want to say, first things first, shout out to Felix for this info I'm going to be showing in this video. I have no idea right now what's really going on in this chapter, so I'm going to be reacting to some of the stuff as I go over it with you guys. And in this video we are going to be going through pretty much all the translations, because we're gonna have the full pages and everything in this video shown as well. And if you are new to my channel, I do want to say, when it comes to the actual pages and such, I am gonna skim through those a little bit quicker, just because Shueisha isn't too great when it comes to copyright with that stuff. So that's why if you guys notice me skimming through certain pages, that's the reason why. But without further ado, let's talk about what's going on. Momoshiki is confirmed to be on the chapter cover, and we scroll up right here where we do see the actual chapter cover. It is a solo Momoshiki cover. I think it looks pretty good. Again, in my opinion, Ikimoto doesn't really miss with too many covers. Most of his covers, especially for Boruto 2 Blue Vortex, have been pretty solid, so I think this just continues that monthly trend. Let me know what you think though in the comments below that one. So aside from that, we have Sarada on the cover of the upcoming volume 6, which is scheduled to drop in Japan in the first week of October. No release date really for other parts of the world, but solo Sarada cover. And based off this image, it actually looks like her fit has a little bit of a tint of pink rather than red like we've seen in some of the other designs. So maybe that's just a artistic choice for the cover, but we'll see if perhaps that translates to maybe the fit actually being changed as well in the actual chapters. We don't know yet, but on the cover it's definitely a little bit of a different color for sure. So moving on, here we go, a little bit of context. So the top text of the cover page says, Sarada and Sumire reconcile, and Boruto proposes a collaboration to Momoshiki. The middle text says, the thread from the depths of hell descends. And that leads us to the actual pages, and we're gonna go through that right now. So page number 1, it seems like we kicked this chapter off with Himawari and Inojin. It starts with Himawari saying, awesome, this honey is always sold out. Right, I just happened to find it on sale when I went. It's the one you like, Himawari-chan, isn't it? Himawari says, I'm so happy. Thank you, Inojin. And then Inojin looks back at her and then just waves goodbye. So that's page 1. That's pretty much the sneak peek preview that we actually had for this month's chapter as well. So that's kicking off our chapter. Page 2, Inojin notices a toad, and the toad pretty much starts talking to him. We know this is Kashin Koji's toad, and it's Kashin Koji himself talking through here. And Koji is saying, I have a few questions for you, Inojin Yamanaka. And Inojin reacts by saying, huh? It's not so much a question, more like a confirmation. Well, just a formality. I already know the answer. And Inojin's thinking, what is this? You have feelings for Uzumaki Himawari, don't you? Am I wrong? And then Inojin starts blushing a little bit and says, no, huh? What? And then Koji responds by saying, that reaction alone is more than enough. Let's move on to the next. Do you want to protect her? And Inojin responds by saying, of course, obviously, isn't that a given? So Koji responds by saying, very well, that's all for the confirmation. Inojin then says, wait a second, what the heck is this? Just who are you? And Koji responds by saying, our interests are aligned. If you want to hear the details, come with me. So This is leading into, it seems like, a conversation now between Inojin and Kashin Koji of some sort, perhaps regarding protecting Himawari. At least that's what I'm getting from this so far. Let's see. So pages 5 through 8. Page 5 is pretty much looking like a reverse summoning to where Koji might be at. And then page 6, we see Kashin Koji just sitting down, kind of aura farming, and Inojin saying, "Who are you?" Koji says, "I am Kashin Koji. I'm fighting to protect this planet from the threat of the God Tree." And Inojin says, "Kashin Koji, are you a remnant of Kara?" And then Kashin Koji says, "I'm not trying to threaten you, but there's no physical way in or out of here. In other words, right now you have nowhere to run." And if you notice right here on the other side behind Inojin, you can see Boruto sitting there. You can just tell that it's him, especially with the sword. So you could tell Boruto's there as well. And there he is, revealed on page 7, I think. And he says, "But don't worry. Once we're done talking, I'll let you go home safely." And Inojin says, "Boruto." Let me see, maybe... Oh, so that part was actually Boruto right there. Where, at least I think so, where they were saying, "I'm not trying to threaten you, but there's no physical way in or out of here. In other words, you have nowhere to run." That might have been Boruto. So, he also says, "But don't worry. Once we're done talking, I'll let you go home safely." Inojin says, "Boruto." So, again, Boruto aura farming as well, just like Kashin Koji. So now we cut over to the Shinju hideout, and it seems like Jura is crying. Hidari says, "Hey, what's going on? Who is that guy?" And then Mamouche is just looking on, smiling, and Jura is just wiping off his tears. So pages 9 through 12. Seems like they talk a lot over here. So Jura says, "This is a book in the category of novel. It's a work of fiction, but honestly I underestimated it. It seems my heart was unexpectedly moved." And Hidari says, "Before, something similar happened to you not long ago, didn't it?" And Jura remembers back, and that's the moment where Matsuri's crying. And Jura says, "That was the emotion of the Matsuri. Various emotions she felt through her connection with Konohamaru. Anger, sadness, and then a glimpse of love." And meanwhile, you have Mamouche over here just reading a adult magazine. So makes sense with Bug's character. This definitely lines up that Mamouche would be like this. And Jura says, "Through Matsuri, what I gained was immense. These tears are also a product of that. Is it gross?" he asks Hidari. And Hidari says, "No, it's interesting. That said, this alone is still far from enough to understand and control love. Even more information is necessary," says Jura. So if you ask me, information isn't really anything all that special. That's what Mamouche is saying. And I might be butchering his name. It might be Mamouche, but this is just one of those names where this is the only Shinju name I keep having to remind myself what it is. So I apologize if I'm getting that slightly wrong. Ada, she's the woman I've set as my target. Why my very instinct chose her. I think I get it. There's a concrete reason for that, huh? And Jura says, "Oh, tell me. The reason I want to eat her isn't simply just about preying on her. Control. That's what I mean by wanting to make her mine. To take her excellent genetic information." So that's, I guess, his motivation right there. So that explains that. I guess he would have been an easy person to guess in terms of target. Really, it would have been Ada, or it would have been maybe Code, just, based off of who Bug had been around. At least that's what I would have thought. But anyway, we move back over here, it seems like, to Shikamaru. Cool little panel right there, Shikamaru walking and us seeing the Hokage cloak. Shikamaru is getting a transmission where it says, "Can you hear me, Shikamaru?" And turns out it's Kashin Koji. "You, whose is this? Mind-body transmission." And Koji says, "We're getting cooperation from Yamanaka Inojin. Don't worry, of course, this is an unofficial communication. And there's no need to worry about the sensory team overhearing it." Shikamaru says, "I see. But leave the talking for later. I've been called upstairs. I'm already feeling weighed down enough as it is." Koji says, "The matter is exactly about that. In the worst case scenario, you could even be removed from the position of Hokage." So this is something Koji's probably foreseen, that Shikamaru might lose Hokage position here in one of the worst case scenarios. So let's see what exactly is going on. Seems like this could lead to being a potentially political heavy chapter. So Shikamaru says, "Ugh, I figured it wasn't something like that." Koji says, if it actually comes to that, it would be trouble for me as well. I'll give you all the advice I can, but what happens is up to you. Act with caution." Shikamaru says, "What a pain. Honestly, I feel like just resigning right now." Classic Shikamaru character right there. Shikamaru walks into this room. He says, "My apologies." You have someone saying, well, it's been a while, 8th Hokage. And he says, "No, the acting Hokage, Nara Shikamaru." "Lord Kobo," Shikamaru says. "What kind of business does a personal attendant directly under the Daimao have?" So I feel like this dude, Lord Kobo, is going to be a problem here. So we have the elders here as well. She says, "Of course, this is about the recent sand mission that you planned, carried out on your own authority." Konohamaru says, "An arbitrary decision?" Lord Kobo says, "This time we are the overseers. The Daimao Dono is questioning the responsibility of you, the village leader. These days, the very necessity of the ninja village's survival is frequently brought up as a topic of discussion. Depending on the circumstances, this could be more of a matter of budget cuts." And even Konohamaru's looking at this, with a little bit of sweat, and Shikamaru's also looking kind of pretty focused and locked in. So let's see what happens next here. Alright, so a little cut in this video. It's been a couple hours now since the last part I was recording of the first 16 pages. Decided to wait for everything to come out, and was hoping we got a bullet point summary of everything as well, but unfortunately we didn't. So we're just going to run through pages 17 to I think 39 or 40 where the chapter ends now, and let's continue on. I haven't really seen all of this myself, so I'm going to still react as I go, but let's keep this conversation going. So the elders are saying, "As you already know, currently our village and the Land of Fire are exposed to the threat of the Shinju." Actually, this is Shikamaru saying this. And Shikamaru also says, "Unfortunately, they are not the kind of people you can reason with. While taking action to deal with them, I obtained certain information. The details of this mission and the selection of the personnel are all based on this information." The elders ask, "What kind of information is it?" And Shikamaru is getting that transmission still with Koji, where it's saying, "I'm sure you understand, but don't mention anything about the presence." Shikamaru says, "Sorry, I can't talk about the details." The elder says, "You." And then Shikamaru says, "That's because it's for everyone's safety. After all, it's something whose truth is even uncertain." So Shikamaru holding it down, not really revealing it. We know he wouldn't. He's a pretty smart guy. Shikamaru says, "However, on the front lines we are often forced to rely on uncertain elements. This time I followed my personal intuition, and I judged that we should act based on the information available. In the unlikely event, I take full responsibility for the plan and its outcomes." Konohamaru says, 8 Hokage. And Sai is also there just listening in quietly. The elders say, "Setting aside the content of the information itself, What we are most concerned about is its source. I can't imagine, but the provider of that information isn't at Rebel Boruto, is it? So, the elders seem to have their main focus on just Boruto being responsible for this, and that's what seems like is more on their mind, which I sort of get it from their view, maybe because, everyone's convinced that he killed Naruto, so it does make sense that he would be on the highest criminal list. But I also can't help but dislike these elders always. I haven't liked them since the Naruto days, and I'm kind of annoyed we still have them back in the story right now, even though they are, realistic plot movers, I guess, for Naruto's political side of things. But still, not a fan of them at all, and would be happy if someone took them out, honestly. Would be happy. But anyway, we continue on. For some reason, I've heard that he is knowledgeable about the ecology of the Shinju and the others. In fact, there are even rumors whispered as if they were true, that he might be secretly connected behind the scenes. The claim is that it's a despicable scheme to deceive the people of the village, using information as bait and try to dismantle Konoha from within. It's for revenge against the village that drove him to this. So they're making some pretty big claims, and then Konohamaru jumps in and says, please wait, that kind of perspective is far too. And then Shikamaru stops him and says, stop it, Konohamaru. But Koji tells him, no, let him speak as he is. It's more convenient than having their attacks aimed at you. So what might save Shikamaru here a little bit and save his job as Hokage might be Konohamaru taking some scolding, it seems like. So Konohamaru says, in this mission, Boruto saved my life. It may just be a personal impression, but at the very least, I can't possibly feel that he has any intention of causing harm to Konoha. They say, Konohamaru Saratobi, you are siding with him? Konohamaru says, no, I just think he might have his own reasons. And they say, fool, have you forgotten? After all, he killed the 7th Hokage. He is undeniably a great criminal and nothing less than a target for elimination. Don't spout nonsense about listening to a criminal. At this point, there is no room for debate. So they're standing pretty firm on this, and they're using Naruto as an excuse, which, valid excuse. I can't lie. Because, it is a Hokage of your village that should be branded as, the highest criminal you can. But then again, we have Orochimaru technically under monitoring, right? Even though he killed the 3rd Hokage, who definitely to the elders was probably a lot closer to them, so... they're probably just trying to push their way of trying to do things as well, to an extent. Pages 21 to 24. Konohamaru says, but elder, and then Shikamaru says, stop it, Konohamaru. Kobo says, this mission itself, it may, at first glance, seem to have been a success. However, if there is a traitor within the village who is in contact with a criminal, that's a different matter. It inevitably becomes a serious issue concerning the security of the land of fire and the prestige of Konoha. And then he says, Yamanaka Sai, take Saratobi Konohamaru into custody. I will conduct the interrogation personally. And Sai says, understood. Dang, they're chaining up my boy Konohamaru. That's kind of crazy. I can't lie. Just for even slightly trying to defend Boruto there, not even completely. That's wild. He says, identify everyone who had direct contact with Boruto, every single one of them. So it seems like everyone might get interrogated. During that interrogation, how Boruto managed to escape restraint and get away. There must be a traitor who assisted his escape. We'll flush that person out. And, Sai, Konohamaru, and Shikamaru all have serious expressions here in that. We cut back over to as well. Koji's listening in, and Inojin's reacting as well. Inojin says, without following proper procedures, secretly communicating outside the sensory team's oversight, and on top of that, right in the middle of a Konoha High Command meeting, using Shindenshin for personal matters is strictly forbidden as it is. Just from what happened earlier, I don't even know how many rules were broken. Do you guys always do things like this? Koji says, we are being hunted. We have no choice but to do this unofficially. And Inojin, don't forget that you have already become fully involved in this as well. Boruto says, the enemy is a group that doesn't hold back in their methods. Why is my page not loading? Okay, managed to fix that. So this one has Boruto saying that we have no choice but to adapt to the enemy's methods. This time, This isn't the time to be worrying about rules. Always think about what you truly need right now, using your own head. Inojin says, I also fought Jura, so I understand, to protect everyone from that monster, to protect Himawari-chan. You need determination and strength. Also, I haven't really touched too much on the whole Inojin liking Himawari thing. I feel like, in a way, it's been hinted at, even from, like, I guess earlier in the anime, you can tell that they are closer, in the regards of Inojin actually, has hung out with Himawari for even like some early parts of Boruto in the anime. I feel like I can see why they went this route with the characters, and I mean, it makes sense. Definitely not something I have crazy thoughts on, but uh, I've seen some people react to it. Some people really, really like it. Some people kind of on it. It's always going to be a little bit mixed, but seems like Inojin's putting in work to keep Himawari happy, especially since Himawari's alone. So, as a fan of Himawari's character, I feel like it's good to respect that. So, page 25. Here we are, and Koji says, Boruto, have you come to an understanding? This is about Momoshiki. You tried to propose some kind of deal, didn't you? And Boruto says, don't worry, it's my duty to fulfill my role. Koji says, that's not really an answer. I really don't like your attitude. I'm not gonna lie, guys, there's a lot of tension between these two. And I feel like it's been hinted at even in the last mission where Boruto took his own action. And I feel like that's gonna carry on over here. Boruto says, that's my line. You've been hiding every inconvenient detail. In the sand mission, how many people were actually supposed to die? And Inojin says, hey, both of you stop it. Koji says, I just guided things towards the most certain outcome for Sarada to awaken her Mangekyo. After all, it was done while avoiding a future where a large number of people would be helplessly killed. If there's still any childish shitty criticism, I'll listen to it. Boruto says this is a waste of time. Hurry up and get on with it. Koji says fine. Koji's talking, says, are you listening, Shikamaru? Explain the situation. Shikamaru says, Konohamaru has been taken to the interrogation room. My turn will probably come eventually, but for now it's fine. Koji says, alright, if anything happens, contact me immediately. For the sake of advancing to the next battle advantageously, you should be the Hokage. Shikamaru says, what a huge pain. Koji says, about 1 week from now, Mamushi of the Shinju will appear in Konoha. And well, there's confirmation of the name for me. I know I've been saying Mamushi a little bit too, but Mamushi is gonna appear. So he's the only Shinju we haven't seen fight yet, so this makes sense, and I think it's going the right route with that. Koji says the target is Ada. I will now explain his abilities and the method to deal with him. And then everybody's kind of listening on. So that's up to 28. I actually think, yeah, I saw this part briefly. We switch gears now, and we're on this whole conversation with Ada, Sarada, and Sumire. And Ada says, so, when are you going to confess to Boruto-kun? And Sarada says, huh? Well, even if you ask me when. Anyway, no one said anything about confessing. And Ada says, huh? What's that supposed to mean? That makes it sound like you want to confess to Boruto-chan, doesn't it? And then Sarada says, why would it sound like that? Sarada says, anyway, he's not in a place to deal with that. If I say something weird and it makes the atmosphere awkward, it'd be scary. Ada says, what a boring kid. What about Kake-chan? And Sumire says, pretty much, as for me, I guess it depends on the timing. I might confess suddenly, unexpectedly. Ada says, wait. This is way too exciting. I can't take my eyes off of it. Sumire says, I think the same goes for Sarada, no matter what you say, right? And Ada says, that's true, that might be the case. She had a prior record for a hugging incident. And Sarada says, what do you mean by incident? Sumire says, but in the end, what really matters is Boruto-kun's feelings, right? Just like Sarada says, he probably won't have time for that at all from now on. And, Sarada looks a little sad hearing that, but they know Boruto's in a tough spot. Ada says, by the way, after getting all excited talking about love stories at this point. I know it's kind of sudden, but let me ask again. You guys aren't enchanted by me, right? And this is where, like, you can tell things get a little bit more serious in tone. And that leads us to pages 33 to 36, where we have like some reactions, and Damon's kind of just looking on with like a smug look that he always has. And Shikamaru says, well, this is actually them remembering back, where Shikamaru says, listen, make absolutely sure you don't get caught, especially not by Daemon. The fact that enchantment doesn't work means, in effect, you're in a position where you could even kill Ada. Do you understand what that means? If they find out, your life might not be guaranteed. And right then, Ada says, because that's how it is, right? To talk about liking someone other than me while I'm right here in front of you. Normally that just wouldn't work. Absolutely not. And Damon's still glaring over. It looks like he's about to move. Sarada activates her Sharingan, her Mangekyo Sharingan, actually immediately. However, I did see this ending part here, page 37. Daemon, however, does leap right at him above them, and he leaps right behind Sarada before she can do anything. And he has both Sarada and Sumire's necks grabbed, and Sarada says, ugh. And that leads us to the last page, where Daemon says, you were trying to do something just now, Sarada. Your proud Mangekyo Sharingan. If you die before using it, it's useless, no matter what it is. It has no meaning. And then the side says, tension running wild, fear racing through. What fate awaits Sarada and Sumire, whose secret has been seen through? Okay, a little rhyme right there. But that's where we end off chapter 26 of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex. I feel like, again, good chapter. Definitely more story progressing, and leaves us with a pretty interesting cliffhanger. So I think pretty solid stuff overall. Definitely want to read the full official translations when they drop. Make sure you guys always support that if you can, and we'll see where things head from there. But overall, I feel positive about it. This is pretty crazy though, stuff at the end, especially with Daemon. In next month's chapter, I'm sure we're going to get some more details about Mamushi and some of his stuff, unless they want to keep that off screen for now. But definitely we're going to get this stuff addressed with Sarada and Sumire, it seems like, fighting Daemon, and this might put them in a pretty rough spot. So let's see what happens. But all in all, I enjoyed the spoilers for what they were. Let me know what you guys thought of everything in the comments below. But that's going to be it for this one. If you guys did enjoy the video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel if you guys are new. And as always, I hope you guys have a good day or night whenever you guys are watching this video. I'm Rewinds, and I'm out.